welcome to Biddenham News. I'm Ella Barker.
And I'm Lizzie Frost. Today we're conducting a special investigation into the European Union, focusing particularly on Britain's relationship to it and whether we should remain as a member state.
This year the First World War is even more prominent in our memories as we mark the 100-year anniversary of its beginning.
This anniversary offers us a different perspective on the EU.
Before we look at Britain's current relationship with the EU, we must first revisit its original purpose and also commemorate the First World War. But first, we hand over to Lizzie Frost, our Foreign Affairs correspondent in Belgium.
Here in the Tyncot Cemetery in Belgium, which is the largest cemetery of the First World War, over 11,000 soldiers are buried here. I've just seen the memorial to my great-grandfather. The First World War was started by conflicts between European nations. 20 years later, it was followed by the Second World War, caused by similar reasons. The European Union was set up after these two world wars to prevent a global atrocity of this scale from happening again. Things have changed a lot in the last 100 years. Although as a nation we still face challenges, such as religious extremism, global warming and economic crises, at least now we know that thanks to the EU there is almost no chance of another European war. Furthermore, being part of the EU means that we can work across borders and much more effectively to combat these global crises.
We sent some of our reporters to interview representatives of British political parties about their views on Europe.
The Conservative Party view on Europe is first and foremost that it's time for the people to have their own voice, their own say on our relationship with the European Union. The European Union has changed a lot since we joined, and it's looking to change further and become much more of a political union. So the Prime Minister, David Cameron, has put it to the House of Commons that people should have a choice, and people from the United Kingdom should be looking to trade and live and learn from people across the world. There's no special place in my heart for the European Union.
UKIP believes that Britain should become a democratic, self-governing country once again. This can only be achieved by getting our nation out of the European Union and reasserting the sovereignty of our Parliament. As so many lies are told about Britain's relationship with the EU, it's important that we focus on some hard facts. While 100% of the economy is subject to the ever-increasing burden of EU regulation, only 10% of our GDP derives from exports to the EU. You will, I'm sure, have heard the scare stories about 3 million jobs being lost if we leave the EU. But this is based on the false premise that all trade would cease when we left the Union. The simple truth is that withdrawal from the EU will have no harmful effect on trade. The advantages to our country from leaving the undemocratic, over-regulated, bureaucratic European Union are impossible to dispute.
Do you think Great Britain should stay in Europe?
Yes, of course.
Why?
I think we all can live only together, and only problem of one country is a problem of all countries.
The EU was originally set up to prevent another catastrophic European war, a goal it has to this date achieved.
Despite this, the EU is not perfect. It still needs improvements. Furthermore, with the possibility of Scotland gaining independence, it is more important for the rest of the UK not to be completely isolated against the rest of the world. Our society is becoming ever more globalised, and so, for Britain to remain a leading figure on the world stage, we need to remain connected to some of our closest neighbours.
It looks increasingly more possible that there will be a referendum on the EU in Britain's future. So, in fairness, it's up to you as the public to decide where you stand on the EU.